Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, sound the alarms. It's time to freak out. In this video, I'll be talking through 5 fantasy football players in week 4 that I've about had it with. These are guys that have had me pulling my hair out for weeks now, guys that I can't stand at this point in time, and just situations didn't play out properly, usage isn't going as expected. Something has made me utterly frustrated with each of these fantasy football players this year, and I am ready to move on here. If I haven't said that 100 times already, I'm sure you have as well. You'll see when we get into the video. 5 players I'm panicking on here. Let's get started. All right, that intro is a bit over the top, but I had fun with it, so hopefully you guys forgive me. Austin Ekeler, of course, you've probably seen some other panic and scaredness in the fantasy community the last few weeks as well. But I gave him patience more so than other players did, and I think it's come back to haunt me here. Austin Ekeler is a player that I had ranked inside of my top 5 for the running back position for 2022 fantasy football, and is currently the PPR running back 13. Now, that is a problem for a player that should be excelling in PPR formats, a guy who should be dominating in this type of fantasy football league. What are you doing, Austin? Or rather, what are you doing, Chargers offensive coaching staff? This is a guy who had 20 touchdowns total, rushing and receiving combined in the 2021 season. We're seeing now in 2022, he has 0. And if you pace out 0 times 17 games, you still get 0. Now, am I suggesting that Austin Ekeler is going to score 0 touchdowns this year? No. He's too talented of a player to not find the end zone at some point this season. But his fantasy status is very much in the air right now in terms of him actually delivering on the draft stock you invested into him. Now, his receiving involvement has saved his year so far. Number 1 in targets, receiving yards, and receptions. However, this is still problematic because of that dramatic decrease in overall touchdown production. This is a guy who is 32nd currently in red zone touches. This is something I look at big time when assessing fantasy football running backs in the offseason. Red zone touches, getting those uber valuable premium looks are key. And he has gotten just 4 of them through 3 games entering into week 4 now. 0 have come on the goal line. So Austin Ekeler, panic, smash the bell here. We're looking to move on, and just please God, Austin Ekeler, just give him some goal line carries and save our fantasy seasons here. DJ Moore, another player I'm panicking on right now, for rightfully so. He's had little to no production to speak of. He's the wide receiver 61 currently in PPR scoring. The Panthers offense is just plain and simple a disgrace right now. DJ is also only seeing 6 targets per game. Now, I actually did this in another video. I didn't write it down though, silly me. I did some math here. You've got 6 targets per game heading DJ Moore's direction. Let's pace that out times 17. Boom, 102 yards. Not sure if you can see my phone showing up clearly on your screens there and the small little box that I'm in to begin with, but 6 times 17 is 102. 102 targets over a 17-game regular season schedule. One of those games you're probably not going to get, access to in terms of week 18 not being a fantasy league game for most teams because your league ends in week 17 as opposed to week 18 here. So that was kind of confusing. If you're not following here, disregard it. The point being, last year, the magic number is ding, ding, ding. 162 is the amount of targets that DJ Moore had a season ago. If you take 60 and divide that by 17, those games, again, assuming he plays every contest, you're about 3.5 targets per game lower than what he was at last season for pacing and overall involvement in this offense. So very tough to see that number. Baker Mayfield's target distribution has been poor in terms of the quality of looks DJ's getting as well. He has just 7 receptions, which ranks 68th this year. He is 93rd in overall target accuracy. That is piss poor, and his quality target rating is 95th, which has an emphasis on deep passing opportunities and discounts short and uncatchable passes. That is a stat I pulled from playerprofiler.com. I'm not affiliated or working with them in any way, but it is a great platform if you're looking for some free analytics. So DJ Moore, again, 95th in quality target rating. That is trash. This Panthers offense and Baker Mayfield have been well below the bar. Let's just say that. 93rd in target accuracy and 7 total catches for 68th total in terms of wide receivers as compared to his peers. So if I'm DJ, man, I would have requested a trade yesterday. This is looking ugly. Diontae Johnson. Now, this is a player where you might be looking at me and you're saying, Gavin, this isn't anything too disastrous. Why are you panicking? I'm taking a proactive approach here. I've got a guy who is 29th in PPR scoring amongst wide receivers right now, and a player who I see inevitable flaws with going forward. Now, if you're just looking for a willy-nilly high-floor flex play that you can just slap in your lineups and expect 10 to 12 points from and full PPR scoring every week, fine, go ahead, be that guy. That's all right. I'm not going to criticize you too heavily for that if you've got other dudes at wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2 that can go out there and just crush it on a given week for you. But you've got such a minimized ceiling right now. And this is a guy who versus, another player that I love in counter here is Keenan Allen, another high floor asset that also gives you a bit of ceiling. And the difference there is Mitchell Trubisky distributing the passes versus Justin Herbert. Now, Herbert's a little bit banged up right now. That plays a factor. I'm not going to pretend that's not happening. However, Money Mitch has not been so money. As a matter of fact, he's been stealing money from the entire municipality of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. You've got a situation where Diontae Johnson is 3rd in air yards, 3rd in deep targets, but 11th in unrealized yards. So that means unrealized yards, the amount of distance from quarterback's hands to wide receivers' fingertips that was not resulted in a completion. It was, a shot downfield that was either, in Diontae Johnson's case, I'm not going to give him this benefit of the doubt here. Could have been a drop, or in other cases, it's just an inaccurate pass and something that wasn't able to be converted into a reception. So the opportunities are there. The volume, the excellent receiver is there, but the quarterback play is not. I think that this either needs one of two things here. You need a drastic improvement from Kenny Pickett, back up, we just revealed our second reason. You either need a drastic improvement from Mitchell Trubisky in terms of downfield passing and red zone efficiency. This offense as a whole has been an utter disaster and is not putting up points. Otherwise, we need Kenny Pickett here. Maybe this isn't the answer, but it's a solution. It's a change and a fix that could positively affect the outcome of this situation. So again, his upside hasn't been the same as in 2021 or even 2020 with noodle arm Ben Roethlisberger coming off of a Tommy John injury. So that gives you some insight into just how bad this has been. Damien Harris here, I've been hitting the panic button for the last 2 years, but right now we're even more so in the depths of this panic situation. He's the RB19 in PPR right now. Sounds good, right? Nope, 40% or lower in snap count percentage each of the first 3 weeks of the season. That's a red flag. If you haven't noticed here, I don't like guys that don't play too much of their team's offensive plays here. He also has 2 touchdowns in 3 weeks. That is very, very efficient conversion in terms of touchdown production on the amount of carries and opportunities you're getting. That, to me, is not something that we can rely on year over year to be consistently sustainable. And the biggest situational issue here is Ramondre Stevenson, who has assumed 62% or more of the team's backfield playing time in back-to-back games here. So for me, as Ramondre Stevenson's been more efficient the last 2 games with his touches as well, outside of week 1, Damien Harris has been the more inefficient back. That's a problem. I think Stevenson's carving out a role for himself here. I also think he's the preferred option for this team in the passing game out of the backfield. So without James White, obviously he retired, with Ty Montgomery now on the injured reserve. This is Ramondre Stevenson's time to shine. Damien Harris is not a proficient pass-catching running back. You're going to see a situation, I think, with Brian Hoyer coming in here. Mac and Cheese, good old Matthew McCorkle-Jones is out. It sounds like he has not officially been ruled out from this contest. Bill's playing some weird media tricks right now at the time of recording this video in the middle of the week. So, if you're watching this on Friday or something when I might release it, potentially we've got news there. But I'm expecting fully Brian Hoyer to be the starter here. What do backup quarterbacks like to do? They like to play very conservative. They like to check the football down. And Ramondre Stevenson seems like a much better option to do that than Damien Harris, just based off of their skill set and repertoire. So for me, Damien Harris, I'm panicking. I think this is, kind of some foresight here, seeing before the situation becomes severely grim for Damien Harris fantasy owners. I would either make sure you've got yourself a share of Ramondre Stevenson as insurance policy locked up on that bench, or I'd be selling high on Damien Harris, baby. I'm just getting out of that situation altogether because that offense is not too prolific either. And then Clyde Edwards-Helaire, another guy that you're probably like, hey, in case you didn't know, this is the PPR running back 4. Gavin, you're panicking on a top 5 fantasy running back? Why? Well, honestly, I should have put this guy in the must-sell, sell high video last week. I don't know what I was thinking. I apologize to you guys for that. That was, fantasy football sinning right there. If I'm being completely honest, you got a guy who is a player that is, 5'8", if we're being generous today. We'll call him 5'8" here. And a guy that is just not a workhorse running back, not someone who's been productive on the ground, yet has found his way in the end zone 3 times to start off this 2022 NFL season. And to make matters worse, now you might, someone's already typing. I hear your fingers. Click, 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 click. You're saying, hey, he's this version or this year's version of Austin Ekeler. Well, last year's version of Austin Ekeler didn't have 44% or fewer of his team's offensive snap share and get out snapped by a backfield mate, in which this case, Jerick McKinnon is actually seeing a higher level of opportunity, not touches, but playing time over Clyde Edwards-Helaire for this football team. So those are all red flags for me. This is a player that his size, these have been passing touchdowns as well. 2 of them, he did have 0 rushing yards this week, but managed to score a touchdown against the Colts. Besides me, I figured he'd be effective in the receiving game, but ended up having a net of 0 yards on, 9 rushing attempts this past week. So CEH for me, not someone that I am very confident in to sustain this level of production. I am panicking because I do not think this is sustainable production. And again, if you can, we'll morph this into a quick sell high clip right here. If you're looking to get some return on the current top 5 fantasy football running back that is Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I would move off of him. Outsnapped by Jerick McKinnon in 2 out of 3 games. McKinnon has the net positive in terms of being across the entirety of the season the higher player in terms of snap count percentage. And you've got a guy in CEH here that I apologize. He did not run the ball 9 times for 13 yards, for 0 yards last week. This is a Devin Singletary stat that I pulled out of the back of my brain somewhere. Very similar body types here. You've got a guy with CEH that has not run the football more than 8 times in a game this year. It hasn't had more than 12 opportunities in a single contest this season, which is not very good production or volume to get that production coming his direction. So I'm bailing on this news here. I'm bailing on Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I'm panicking. I'm looking to move off of him here. And those are my 5 players that, again, I'm fed up with here. I'm sick and tired of all the talk in the fantasy community about them, and I've hit my limit. So if you've got these players, I wish you luck. I would try and make a move and do something to get these guys off of your team. We can discuss that and more in the comment section below, and I'll see you guys there. Make sure to subscribe if you're new around here, like before you head on out, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace out.